3 News Now this week.
What may look like toys to you are tools for Steve Minnelli to build up his body so he can get back to managing construction projects.
If anything else, it's just a real positive attitude builder to be able to get in the water and see that movement again. That's one of the reasons I like this pool therapy so much.
Last year, Steve contracted West Nile virus.
It could have happened at work. I spent a lot of time outside on construction sites. It could have happened at home. We spend a lot of time on our back deck, and we have a trail network at home that we do a lot of hiking on, so it could have happened anywhere.
According to the CDC, 1 out of every 150 people infected with the virus develop a serious or fatal illness. Symptoms include high fever, disorientation, tremors, and numbness. For Steve, it started as a backache and escalated to paralysis, respiratory failure, and brain damage.
Most of what I know about that time frame is all what my family has told me.
Last year, Douglas County had a record number of West Nile cases, with 71 reported cases. So far this year, the county has just 1.
We did have a wet spring, and so we tend to have more water areas for those birds to kind of surround themselves in, and so the mosquitoes and the birds need to make contact to have the West Nile virus. And so if the birds are more spread out, the mosquitoes aren't as concentrated in one area, maybe that tends to lead to less West Nile cases.
While experts can't say with certainty why we're seeing a drop, we aren't in the clear just yet. West Nile season usually peaks in August and September, the same time of year Steve contracted the virus. Working in the water at Madonna Rehabilitation Hospitals, Steve can't help but think about the one tool he almost never used.
The only time I would wear bug spray is if the mosquitoes were really bad at night.
Now he hopes his message can save someone's life.
Wear your bug spray. Don't take a chance, wear your bug spray.
There's an app for just about anything and everything these days. And now there's an app for this too, contraception.
That is cool.
You can learn about birth control. You can learn about UTI treatment. There's frequently asked questions, and you can also make an appointment at a health center.
The Planned Parenthood app has been out for a couple years, but it has just expanded to Nebraska and Iowa last week. The app is called Planned Parenthood Direct.
With birth control and everything being delivered to their house, that's amazing since we don't have all of the access that we need in our life for it.
For the birth control, it's as easy as answering a couple simple questions right on the app and then getting it delivered straight to your mailbox in just a couple days. There's a feature on the app to even get medication to treat UTIs without visiting the doctor's office.
Answer some health questions. There's a $20 visit fee for this request, and then they would give you a prescription to whichever pharmacy is most convenient for you.
The accessibility is a great tool for some women on the go.
Yeah, it would help me a lot because I wouldn't have to go and pick it up all the time, especially with being in college. You don't really have all that free time that you really want.
The release of the app comes just weeks after the organization announced it was not taking in Title X funding anymore, losing millions of dollars in federal funding.
The timing is interesting. These two things were in the works completely separately, but we really want to continue to make sure that patients can access the care that we provide at Planned Parenthood.
The organization wants everyone to know that even without the funding, all services are still offered. The hope now is that the access will only be expanded.
There are approximately 210,000 women in the state of Nebraska that currently don't feel like they have adequate access to reproductive health care. So the goal is to really reach those folks.
Reporting in Omaha, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
26-year-old David Mitchell is booked on a felony burglary charge on Monday for allegedly conspiring to steal from a competing gaming business. In a handful of incidents in June and July, about $50,000 worth of consoles and expensive games were stolen from the shelves at the game room at 72nd and Dodge. Former Gamers employee Anthony Rodriguez told police that Mitchell had him steal from the game room to sell in their Lincoln store. Current Gamers employee Philip Williams also arrested in the thefts and was reportedly caught on camera using a key to get in because he used to work there. In August, police issued a search warrant on the Gamers Lincoln store, seizing 4 stolen consoles. Mitchell told KMTV weeks ago he had nothing to do with it.
To me, it was like really surprising.
A search warrant indicates they searched Mitchell's and Williams' Facebook pages and learned they were in contact while Williams was inside the game room during the burglary, even sending photos of PlayStation filing cabinets and decorations. Records indicate 95 consoles were reported stolen from the game room's buy-in area. Prosecutors say Mitchell's claim doesn't add up.
Well, obviously we think that there's information or evidence that shows otherwise. Well, certainly we wouldn't file the case unless we felt that there was the evidence showed that the allegations were true.
Mitchell is still being housed here at the Douglas County Jail. He will likely have his bond set either Tuesday or Wednesday. Reporting in downtown Omaha, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
Everyone pretty much loves it. It's just the funding of it that has been a problem.
That kind of says it all. Since the legislature approved the Hunters Helping the Hungry program 7 years ago, it's fed countless Nebraskans. In 2017, more than 140,000 servings of venison went to those who really need it.
It's really a win-win for everybody. The hunters can, in the savings that they have for not paying for processing and the time savings and not having to find someone to give that deer to, they can go out and they can harvest another deer.
Last year, I want to say that through all the donations that we received, we probably ended up with about 1,100 or 1,200 pounds of meat that stays here locally. So it's a great program.
Despite the success, donations have continued to go down, dropping by almost $20,000 in 2017 and even lower last year. So this year, they only have enough money to harvest 375 deer, a drop of almost 200 from 2018.
Bottom line, somebody has to pay for that processing, and the Hunters Helping the Hungry program can't pay for it if we don't have money in the program funds.
So to get the program back on its feet, Nebraska Game and Park says they need cash donations for next year. They're not asking for a lot, saying anything helps.
What people don't realize is those $1 donations from a whole lot of people actually usually has a bigger impact than one $500 donation.
And Lombard also says that donation money is used efficiently, with $1 providing about 2 meals of venison. You can find out how to donate on our website, 3newsnow.com. In the studio, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
The Nebraska football team suffered a tough loss Saturday. Earlier today, the Huskers met with the media at Memorial Stadium. Sports director Adam Kruger and reporter Phil Bergman have a recap from Memorial Stadium.
Hi there again, everybody. I'm Adam Kruger alongside Phil Bergman. And Phil, what we gathered from the Huskers today, a very frustrated Big Red team, feeling like they let one get away Saturday in Boulder with that overtime loss.
They let one get away, but the team made sure to let the fans know that this season is not over for them. It's a loss, but they're going to pick up the pieces and hopefully move on in the right direction. They said it was a wake-up call and something they needed, and now they're going to go back to the practice field, and they have Northern Illinois on Saturday. Yeah, a lot of the media wanting to discuss specifically what went wrong Saturday in that second half against the Buffaloes, and Scott Frost emphasized it was the start of the third quarter, not coming out crisp on offense, not much energy from the offense on Saturday, and when really Nebraska could have delivered the knockout punch. Scott Frost saying if they could have gone up maybe 24-0, that could have maybe brought down the Buffalo's chances of coming back in that game. So they really felt like the offense could have delivered the knockout blow, but really couldn't get it done in that third quarter, costing the Big Red. Offense couldn't deliver the knockout blow. Defense couldn't get those crucial stops. They just don't have that killer instinct yet, and that is what's going to take this team to that next level over time, is getting into these situations and staying cool, calm, and collected, and staying composed and taking home the W when you have that halftime lead. Yeah, so the frustration from the offense in that third quarter, and then in that fourth quarter, the NU defense, Scott Frost kind of admitted that the Blackshirts got maybe a little bit of tired there at the end. Maybe give some credit, he said, maybe to the altitude, but Scott Frost said he's never noticed that there. So, and Mo Berry emphasizing that they could have laid the smackdown and really ended that game against the Buffaloes, but they let him back into it with just a few plays. He said there's no excuses, though. He did also say that everything for Nebraska is out in front of them, and that includes a conference championship. He said if Nebraska wins the Big Ten championship, no one's going to remember this loss to Colorado such early in the season. So technically he's right when he says that the Nebraska's goal is still out in front of them. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the altitude. Last week, Coach Frost said that the altitude would play no effect in the game, and now people are starting to say, hey, it was the altitude, it was the conditioning, and they've been talking about how greatly conditioned they are, so you wonder if they won, if they'd be even considering this. But the team's made it clear that this is a loss, but as you said, it doesn't really affect their Big Ten chances at all. It's just a loss on the schedule. They can move on. They had a great practice on Monday, the players said. That was one of their hardest practices they've had in a while. And they're taking on a Northern Illinois team now that they have a lot of history with over the last 2 years and a lot of bad memories of.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago when Northern Illinois came in here and upset the Huskers. Granted, it was different coaching staffs then, different quarterback, a lot of different players from 2 years ago when Mike Riley was still here. That was basically the beginning of the end for Mike Riley. But there were a handful of players who didn't play in that game. Mo Berry and DiCaprio Boodle, both of them talking about that loss today and how DiCaprio Boodle even said that Northern Illinois came in here and put our faces in the mud. And Mo Berry even said the practices leading up to that Northern Illinois game 2 years ago were not very serious, not very crisp, and basically that they took Northern Illinois lightly. The way Nebraska's played so far with their Jekyll and Hyde personality, I don't think that'll be the case this week in practice.
It's going to be fascinating to see how they play. Northern Illinois should be historically a cupcake game. They're in the Mid-American Conference. They should not compete with the Huskers. But 2 years ago, they came in and upset the Big Red for perhaps the ugliest loss in a 2-decade period. All the fans still remember it. The loss cost athletic director Sean Eichhorst his job. He was fired later that next week. So I think the Big Red are going to come out with a lot of emotion heading into Saturday's game.
Saturday's game kicks off just after 7 p.m. Saturday right here at Memorial Stadium. For Phil Bergman, I'm Adam Kruger for 3 News Now Sports.
Omaha is known for a lot of things like steaks and the zoo.
But one man is trying to make Omaha known for something a bit more artistic.
3 News Now News Director Jeff Roth shows us what he's creating.
In a building in North Downtown Omaha is a collection of artist workshops and galleries. One of those workshops, in the Hot Shops Art Center, is creating musical art, turning sounds like this into sounds like this. Alex Reza and his wife Genevieve own Violins of Omaha. The couple, along with local violin maker Dirk Henry, create violins, violas, and cellos. Alex started making violins after he learned to play while his children were taking violin lessons. He is self-taught and started making a name for himself after winning awards for his handmade instruments.
As in the violin world, a lot of stuff is based on trust. You know, and then after a while you establish. It takes a long time to establish, trust in the music community sometimes so that they know who they can go to and who's going to take care of them properly.
Reza says people want his instruments because of the quality and the ability to customize them. It's a long process.
To commission a violin, ideally, to let the instruments settle and everything else, I'd like to be at least 3 to 6 months out. We go through, and a lot of times, if they're here locally, we allow them to pick some of the wood. We talk about the model and kind of what they're looking to do. And from there, the process of making the instrument, anywhere from 180 to 240 hours. And then you got the varnishing. So once you varnish the instrument, that's another week to 2 week process, and then the varnish has to cure.
His musical products can cost anywhere from $400 to several $1,000s and are used by professional musicians around the world, as well as students right here in Omaha, like Joseph Zhang. Joseph's dad, Andy, says commissioning a violin from Reza also comes with care.
Since he purchased this violin, Joseph has came here for a few times for tune-up and maintenance, and that really helped a lot.
So the next time you think about Nebraska, don't just think about cows and corn. Think about concerts and concertos and the beautiful instruments creating that music made right here in Omaha. Reporting in Omaha, I'm Jeff Roth, 3 News Now.
So I recently spoke with the nonprofit Milkweed Matters. They tell me the monarch butterfly population has dropped by 90% over the past 20 years. Now, they say it's because of a loss of habitat. The nonprofit was formed to help restore that population as well as other pollinators. The organization says without pollinators like monarch butterflies, production of fruits and vegetables could be greatly affected. But you can help. Milkweed Matters is encouraging people to drop seed balls, which have milkweed, across their land. They say milkweed is essential for the breeding and diet of monarch butterflies.
We don't need to get rid of all the pollinating flowers. You don't need to get rid of those wildflowers. It's not weedy. It's really necessary. And in our lives, we depend upon it because we need the pollinators and we're killing them by our practices.
The organization says the growth of cities as well as farmers using more herbicides has also played a role in the decline of the monarch butterfly population. Now, if you don't have a yard or lots of land to throw seeds on, that's okay. Milkweed Matters says you can play a role by helping raise awareness of the issue and encouraging others to do the same. In studio, Sydney Gray, 3 News Now this morning.
Amy Mincer is busy at work at Peru State. Life is getting back to normal for her.
It was a tough 4.5 months. Yeah, it was really hard.
Overnight, Mincer's daily commute went from 35 minutes to 2 hours. She ended up moving into the dorms for the rest of the semester.
It made it bearable for me, even though living in a dorm doesn't sound all the greatest. It was a good solution to my problem.
The problems at Peru State reached more than just housing.
Our water was shut off and we needed to close campus for 2 days so that the city could come up with a way to bring water back to campus.
And we were using it as fast as we were bringing it in.
The water's fixed, but 6 months later, Peru is still underwater.
None of the water you see around here is supposed to be here. 6 months in, we're still in the midst of the natural disaster. Right now, we're trying to get back on our feet as a community. We've also got some big assets in Peru. Peru is a critical component of southeast Nebraska.
The water levels have stayed consistent for the last several months. The water's remained because it has nowhere to go.
People should care about a town of 860 people because these are people. These are Nebraskans.
So after all this, what's next for this small town in southeast Nebraska? Well, it starts by getting rid of this water and rebuilding this levee here in Peru. Reporting in Peru, Nebraska, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now.
Imagine losing everything in the blink of an eye.
I've lost all of my son's baby items, my own baby items that I had from when I was a baby, everything. So it's not like you can just recover from that.
That's what happened to Chantel and thousands of flooding victims around the state this past spring. But now a new problem is emerging on top of the devastation.
Chantel Nye and her family have already lost everything in the spring floods. She can't access her home here at Green Acres and has to wear a hazmat suit to get her belongings. To her, the thought of losing any more is unfathomable.
And we've started to see a lot of folks to apply for disaster assistance, which has been great. Though, despite the disaster assistance that's being offered, we have a lot of fraud and a lot of challenges with individuals who are trying to defraud disaster survivors.
Money and personal information taken from victims of the flooding by scam artists posing as FEMA employees. Chantel hasn't experienced this herself, but says she cannot believe that anyone would take advantage of victims in this way.
Why would you scam anyone to begin with? But why would you scam people that are really trying to start over again? It's not easy starting from scratch.
It's important to take precautionary steps to make sure you avoid fraud. FEMA says you should never give out your personal information to anyone unless they have a FEMA ID badge.
It should be a formal identification and laminated card that they should present to you throughout the time and have no qualms about showing it to you.
FEMA will also never ask for any money up front.
We want to make sure that everybody has their personal information protected as we go through this disaster recovery process.
I feel bad for anybody that's having to go through that, honestly. I can't even imagine doing that.
Reporting in Bellevue, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
A nightclub at 15th and Farnham is under fire for what neighbors say are continued problems. Residents at the Barker building say loud music and loud crowds are out until early morning hours many of the nights of the week. There are fights, intoxicated people being overserved, some urinating in the streets, and litter all over the place. They get a chance to voice their concerns to the city council because at least 3 residents made formal complaints, so the council had to have a hearing if Club Karma will not have their liquor license automatically renewed.
I definitely have to wear earplugs and put a pillow over my head so to block out the noise if I want to try to sleep.
There's a lot of urination going on right outside of our building, which is disgusting. You can go out and smell it now even. The violence and the broken bottles on the ground are a huge concern to me.
The owner, Paul Hyde, says he wants to be a good neighbor and has been making changes. He says he's changed the security, brought in different promoters, and worked with the landlord to discuss canceling the loud noise.
We are downtown. We want to be respectful with our noise, but also, as you can see in the letter that was written, that we can't control the noise that's happening at the intersection at 15th and Farnham.
The Omaha Police Department says since April there have been 5 tavern reports for disturbances and assaults, and that they've dedicated lots of resources to Club Karma. The city council wanted to know why Hyde never showed up to meetings he was told to come to, which could have kept this hearing from happening. They voted unanimously for Club Karma not to have an automatic liquor license renewal.
And I think you got caught in at least 4 different fibs today. And the more you talked, the more you did yourself in.
So now the owners of Club Karma will actually have to come back, fill out a long form application for a new liquor license, and then go back in front of the city council where they will either recommend a denial or approval, and then it'll go to the Liquor Control Commission. Reporting in downtown Omaha, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
If you're having an issue with a local business with a liquor license, it takes 3 formal complaints from residents to have the city council take up the issue.
We will work hard and hunker down and provide great leadership. I will provide the leadership as I have up to this point and continue to stay positive. I'm very, very optimistic about what we have.
What Sean Eichhorst had less than a week later was his walking papers. The Huskers upset by Northern Illinois 2 years ago that set the table for Scott Frost to take over. Despite different coaches now for both teams, a few current Nebraska players still remember that dreaded day.
We got a whole different opponent this week. You know, we got a Northern Illinois team coming in here. You know, last time they were in here, they put our face in the mud, you know, and they left happy. So, you know, that's also something that we got to be mindful of.
Touchdown. When I look back at that loss, I just think we didn't give them the respect that they deserved. I felt like practice was very loose that week. I felt like people were just, you know, like, oh, Sun Belt or whatever conference, we going to beat them, we going to dust them. Even playing relaxed football, we should beat them by 40. Again, every team we face this year, we're going to give them their respect.
7 p.m. start Saturday on FS1.
Omaha police say the 9-year-old boy was heading southbound on Florence Boulevard when a Metro Transit bus driver saw the child.
And at some point the bus attempted to pass the scooter after honking at the child on the scooter, just trying to get their attention to let them know that they were passing in.
The bus ended up striking the boy riding on a spin motorized scooter, sending him to the hospital. Now police are investigating whether laws were broken by the boy or the driver. But Omaha police say there doesn't appear to be a law saying you have to be a certain age to ride a scooter.
As far as I know, it's just more of a regulation for the company and the rider that they have to accept those responsibilities of following their rules and regulations.
Spence says their rules clearly state you must be 18 with a valid driver's license to ride their scooters. When signing up for the scooter, you must agree to those terms. In a statement, they tell 3 News Now, "We are very saddened to hear about this crash. Spin is incredibly committed to the safety of its riders, and our team in Omaha is in touch with law enforcement to understand what exactly happened." The boy was also not wearing a helmet, which Spin and the city recommend.
It's the final weigh-in for these snow leopard cubs in the old cat facility at Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo.
We've kept them aside because we want them to mature, and it's actually better for them if they have time just with their mom.
At 3 months old, you can hear these cubs are getting feisty.
In the wild, those snow leopards would begin to follow the mom as she's going out and hunting, and that's the beginning of their learning how to seek and find prey.
Their checkups are quick. A quick scan for their microchip, listening to their heart, and sitting on the scale.
Their ears are kind of pinned back. They're not happy.
She's clocking in at 6.6 pounds, and he's 7.5.
There you go, girl.
And a couple minutes later, they're on their way to their new home at the Asian Highlands exhibit.
Once we get them into the new facility and let them acclimate for a number of days, then we'll give them access to the exhibit, which is made for snowleopards. So it's going to be a spectacular new experience for them.
But zoo guests will have to wait a little bit longer to see them in person. Reporting in Omaha, Stephanie Nolte, 3 News Now.
Omaha is forever part of the history of 9/11. President George W. Bush spent part of the day at Offutt Air Force Base in a bunker at Strategic Air Command. Reporter Phil Bergman talked with a few 3 News Now employees who were here working that day 18 years ago.
110 stores down to the ground.
It's still in your memory, just like it was just a couple years ago.
It's just one of those things you won't forget.
Immediately after the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, a dozen or more Omaha police officers were sent to Epley Airfield.
There's only a few events that I've covered in my career that just have stuck with me, and that's the top one.
We were sitting in the newsroom, we were kind of watching the monitors, the network monitors, just saying something had happened in New York.
I remember being in the newsroom and seeing them fall.
Hear that? Hijacking right before the plane crash.
We ended up at a fire station watching the firemen huddled around their TV monitor.
We went into like a history class of like 7th and 8th graders.
It kind of scares me because you think that they might come after us next.
They knew what was, something was going on, but the big thing is that nobody knew what was going on.
It was around noon. Somebody called our newsroom, and the caller said Air Force One and 2 fighter jets just flew over Millard. And we just looked at each other and said, whoa, what? And one of our crews, one of our photographers, somehow made friends with a homeowner in an adjoining neighborhood, and who let her into the backyard.
They stood out there with me, and we waited for the president to land.
People were saying like, why is he coming here? He's a target. People were afraid that that Offutt or Omaha was going to be attacked.
I just remember seeing all the people running around that plane. I felt safe because I knew if he was here, the president was here, that every measure of safety was going to be around us. But it's so surreal knowing why he's there.
The about 2 hours he was here was a little intense because you didn't know exactly what was happening and how long he was going to be here.
You know he's off to address our whole country, and we're all looking to him for guidance and to help us feel like it's going to be okay.
Phil Bergman reporting. Those are just a few of the memories from people here at KMTV. Remembering first responders was the focus of a 9/11 luncheon today. Former U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel was the keynote speaker at the First Responders Foundation luncheon at the Hilton in downtown Omaha. The luncheon honors all first responders and all those who support first responders. Hagel talked about how much has changed in the U.S. in the past 18 years since September 11th.
Every facet of our lives, our citizens' lives have been changed by what happened on 9/11. Security efforts focus, that has also required changes in our governance, our institutions, because, for example, we built Department of Homeland Security a few months after 9/11.
Mayor Gene Stothert, former Mayor Mike Fahey, among others, were also recognized for their support of first responders.
The unemployment rate in Nebraska is low for July of 2019. The Nebraska unemployment rate sat right at 3.1% compared to the national 3.7%. And this is good, right?
Certainly has really become a challenge the last 6 to 12 months to find outstanding team members.
It is great for the economy, but businesses
Well, I'm Kevin. I'm the general manager out at Love's in Shelby. Nice to meet you.
are struggling now to find qualified employees and fill up those open positions.
In this tight labor market, we're always out trying to find the best employees we can to upgrade our staff.
At a local job fair today, booths sometimes sat empty, employers waiting to find their perfect employees.
Hundreds of positions in this job fair today.
But it's hard when people already have great jobs.
In this low unemployment, it's hard to find a quality candidate.
So companies are more competitive than ever.
We've had to really look at our salaries and benefits and wage offerings and continue to increase those.
We're competitive. We definitely are paying more with the low unemployment rate. You can come work at Hy-Vee and get a very satisfying pay right now.
Making it the perfect time to go out and get a job.
It's a great time to be looking for a job at all levels because everybody's looking for the right people and they're willing to pay a nice premium and a lot of different perks and benefits.
Go find jobs. There are employers everywhere.
Reporting in Omaha, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
Well, getting from point A to point B can be tough, especially when you don't have a vehicle. And that's the reality for many cancer patients. That's why the American Cancer Society is asking for your help in making sure those patients get to their treatments.
When you ride with Sharon Carlton, expect to talk about a variety of things.
It was just like a garden statue, but he bought it and he liked it.
From antiques to traveling to memories that bring back laughter. And based on this, you never know she's dealing with a trying time.
I have to be in a joking manner, you know, even though cancer is a very serious disease.
Back in July, Carlton was diagnosed with cancer, but that's not the only hardship she's facing.
I don't have a car.
Which has made getting to her treatments tough at times.
I did take a cab a few times. Gee, it was $25 one way and $25 another, so that's $50 right there I spent. And who's got that kind of money?
That's where people like Peggy Wagoner come into the picture. She volunteers her time to take people like Carlton to their treatments.
If it wasn't for Peggy and the other volunteers that I've had, there would be no way that I, could go there all the time.
But it's not just the ride patients appreciate.
Having someone there who knew what they were going through and just to listen to them as they were getting a ride to treatment has been invaluable to people we've spoken with.
The Cancer Society is looking to add more than 10 drivers to the program, which Carlton hopes those spots are filled and then some.
I think when people work together, when people volunteer, it not only makes the patient feel good, it's going to make them feel good too.
In Omaha, John Madden, 3 News Now.
Most of the time, it's pretty empty.
I think it's more confusing for the drivers than anything.
The bike lane on Fort Crook Road has been around for about 7 years. Now the city's putting the brakes on it. Bellevue City Administrator says it's underutilized and will be changed back to a third lane going both directions within the next 30 to 60 days. People who work on Fort Crook said they didn't see many people use it, only in group rides.
At first it was kind of annoying because, we got used to driving in 3 lanes on Fort Crook, but, once you got used to it, it wasn't that big of a deal. So for them to go backwards is kind of weird, I think.
The city says it was also difficult to enforce laws for people driving in the lanes. So they tried to educate drivers, but it was difficult since the bike lanes were so wide.
It is confusing because that's the bike lane that's where you got to turn from. And I think people don't know what to do, and so they're waiting to the last minute and then quickly turning over.
Returning it to driving lanes will cost about $20,000. Some say no need to pump the brakes.
I mean, since Bellevue's already used to it, they should probably just leave it.
Right. I think they should keep it here. I mean, it's safety for the bicyclers, and then they're not in the traffic.
Others say it's time to go.
I'm actually quite surprised over the few years that it's been available that no one's been seriously hurt. Bellevue has grown a lot, very congested, and an extra lane for vehicles is always going to be a good thing.
Reporting in Bellevue, Jake Wasikowski, 3 News Now.
Well, for all of you foodies out there, next week will be a great time for you to take a delicious adventure through Omaha's expanding culinary scene. It's Omaha Restaurant Week, and some local restaurants will be offering special promotions. Now, to discuss this 10-day foodie celebration and share some tips on how to navigate the tasty specials, I have Tim and Lisa Trudell. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Maya.
Good morning. Well, let's start by talking about your expertise on the Omaha food scene. You wrote this book called Unique Eats and Eateries of Omaha. So tell me a little bit about this book and the project.
Well, it's a dream come true because we like to eat. So
Yeah, same. I can relate.
We like to dine out. So the nice thing is that we had written the first book, 100 Things to Do in Omaha Before You Die, and then talking and working with our publisher, they had a new series, Unique Eats and Eateries of, and we thought Omaha would be a good fit for them, and obviously it's worked out well. We have great food, and
yes,
we've got a diverse selection of restaurants and foods, and so it really worked out well to do the book and have it act as a guide for people to travel the city and learn, not only about the food and culture and some history.
Exactly, and again, like you said earlier, we have so many places from every continent here in Omaha. Now, Restaurant Week is great because it gives us the opportunity to go to maybe some fancier places or some other dining options to get something for a better deal. What are some tips that you would give to people who are wanting to do Restaurant Week next week?
Well, I would suggest, firstly, to experiment. Try something new. Try a new restaurant that maybe you've been interested in, but you haven't made it there. Try that. It could be a favorite restaurant of yours, but you haven't, if you're like me, you're stuck on a certain dish at most restaurants. So sample, try something new, experiment. And then also another tip I would say is make sure you tip your server, very generously.
Yeah, because there will be some big deals that you're going to be saving kind of a lot of money for yourself. Now, what are some of there are nearly, last time I checked, there were nearly 50 participating restaurants that will be as part of this. There was Railcar, Cernella, Pitch, Sullivan Steakhouse. What are some of the best deals that you've seen so far that will be offered next week?
I actually was looking and doing some research last night, and there are some really good deals out there. Jay Gilbert's has been, I looked at that and broke down they have some things on their Restaurant Week menu that are on their regular menu, and so I compared the prices, and actually you can save about at least $15 per person on the combination, the price fix menu. And they're at a $40 price point for that 3-course meal that you can put together. And I do recommend getting their jumbo crab cakes.
Oh, right.
They're more crab than cake than you'll find at most other places. I love that. And add a cocktail, and it would be an additional charge, but adding a cocktail, I got a great martini last time I was there, and they make it right there at your table side, and it's a great experience.
So again, it's not just the food, but also an experience.
Yes.
Absolutely, and you can get your parking validated there, so that's another great tip.
Perfect.
So you don't have to worry about the stress of finding some place to park.
There you go. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for being here, Lisa and Tim. Again, we have so much more coming up on this. We'll have just beginning, besides just getting to eat, feast on these delicious food, of course, the portion of the proceeds from the participating restaurant will go towards Food Bank for the Heartland. Now you can get more information on Omaha Restaurant Week at visitomaha.com/restaurant week.
1, 2, 3. It's been a long time coming for Omaha's newest multi-use development in West Omaha. Avenue 1, the $1.2 billion project, will turn 50 city blocks at 192nd and Dodge into a ton of office and retail space, as well as a hotel and residential living. Skytracker 3 takes an overview of the land. Kurt Hofer, CEO of Jasper Stone Holdings, says it took almost 15 years to piece together all the land and get the city and state on board to help improve 192nd Street.
Without people stepping up and providing leadership, these kinds of things wouldn't happen.
They're calling it the gateway to the west of Omaha, and it will create 6,500 permanent jobs.
I know Avenue 1 will become a huge destination for the residents, the businesses, and the restaurants that are going to make their home here.
Mayor Gene Stothert says it diversifies Omaha's offerings for family living.
I have the pleasure of working on suburban growth as well as urban infill. We have both of them going on now, and that makes for a very, very healthy city.
Avenue 1 will have 26 acres of green space, encouraging people to connect through that and the 6 miles of biking and walking trails. With SkyTracker 3, you can see where developers envision putting a pedestrian bridge over Dodge to connect to Youngman Lake.
I'm really confident that it should happen and it could happen. And so our Parks Department has been working to connect that with Youngman Lake. That would truly open up this area, and I think it's an important part of the development.
Bringing an urban feel to a suburban area. Reporting for 192nd and Dodge, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
I have some other friends that are concerned about it.
Parents of Bellevue Public School students have raised concerns over lunch periods.
What bothers me is that I will see some of them sit down and they don't have very much time whatsoever to eat. And that's not a joke.
The elementary school students have about 20 minutes to wait in line, get their food, and eat. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that students get 20 minutes to eat lunch a day. And that's 20 minutes of sitting down and eating, not 20 minutes for a lunch period total. Parents say if their child is in the back of the line, sometimes they'll have just minutes to finish their meals. Some say the long lines are to blame.
They gotta punch in their numbers so it makes it slower, and if they forgot it, then the lunch lady has to look it up.
Gretna Public Schools have a unique system to get their students through the lines as fast as possible.
So it takes a picture of your pointer finger, a couple little polka dots on your finger in a few places, and when they put their finger back onto the biometric scanner, it could identify those pin spots.
But even then, is under a half hour enough time for kids to eat and not rush?
I'm really grateful that we have that much time at Gretna Public Schools. However, my own children take about an hour to eat.
Chantel Nye sometimes brings her son lunch to school just so he can have something warm to eat and have enough time to eat it.
I'm glad that I'm bringing him food because he doesn't have to stand in that line right now.
In a statement, Bellevue Public Schools said in part that they understand the importance of providing adequate time for students to eat lunch, but that they have not heard from any parents, guardians, or families about this specific concern. But this looks to be a national issue.
It's all over the United States. This is not something that's just here.
When kids don't have enough time to eat, their food goes to waste.
That's actually across the nation. We're seeing the #1 consequence is food that the kids would have eaten goes in the trash.
Plus, having a nutritious lunch for kids is vital to their development.
It is extremely important for the kids to have enough time to eat, consume those healthy foods, let their hair down for a moment.
Reporting in Bellevue, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
Rural health care is facing a crisis nationwide. Facilities closing, staff shortages, or suffering from a lack of funding. Our investigative team is looking at how small facilities are trying to recruit nurses and doctors, which is no easy task. Jeff Van Sant has the story.
Living and working in small rural communities is not for everyone. And that's the problem when it comes to keeping medical professionals. It's hard to bring in doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners to hospitals like this one in Binkelman, a town of around 900 people.
It's just that mindset that we're in the middle of nowhere and we're critical access and nobody wants to work here.
Lycan Verbis is the chief nursing officer at the Dundee County Hospital. It's about getting creative. It's not just enticing a doctor or a nurse, but their families.
You know, we have to sell the town as well as the facility. You know, we just try to tell them what all we have, and I don't know, we try to sell it the best we can.
I mean, they may fall in love with our opportunity, but their spouse does not fall in love with our community.
Rita Jones is the CEO.
Even though you're out here where you don't have a lot of the amenities that you want, you're not isolated. It's easy to get someplace.
It does take some convincing. Nebraska and the federal government offer loans and payment programs for medical professionals working in rural areas.
It's one of their biggest recruitment and retention tools. We actually did a study last year looking at family medicine providers across the state, and for especially rural and small towns, it showed a significant increase in retention by having the loan repayment program there.
The Health Resources and Services Administration says 20% of Americans live in rural areas, covered by only 9% of physicians nationwide. Fewer than 1% of final year medical residents prefer to practice in small communities.
I'm from rural Iowa, so I knew what I was getting myself into, so to speak.
Dr. Janine Wedeking, a third-year family medicine resident at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, spent over 2 months working in the small town of Lexington.
We have sufficient training to kind of run independently. So, how have things been going since Friday? Since I saw you? Yeah?
Yeah.
So you see a patient in clinic, you've delivered their baby. Well, you might see their cousin, and you might see her husband, and you might see the grandma, and you may see them at Walmart.
Does she seem pretty satisfied after feeds?
It's hands-on. She's there to boost staff, some who have been overworked, even delivering over 30 babies in her short time here.
It's a lot of days I have full clinic schedules, so I think I've probably seen over 500 clinic patients in the past couple of months. Yeah. So I've been pretty busy.
Dr. Wedeking plans to make rural medicine her life.
She looks like Dad, doesn't she?
She does. She does.
She loves it.
Okay, perfect. You are the doc in clinic. You are the doc in the inpatient ward. You're the one delivering the baby. You're potentially the one covering the ER for the weekend. So it's certainly a huge commitment, but certainly huge reward.
She is an exception. It's a hard job selling small-town America. But it's a struggle rural medical professionals keep improving.
We've gone to educational things or job fairs and tried to pull in people, but it's hard to get new nurses to believe that they're not just going to be stuck out here in the middle of nowhere. Like, they all want to be specialized, or they all want to, that's too small for us, we'll be bored. But we're never bored here.
No, never bored. Well, Jeff joins me now. You've looked at a wide range of issues facing rural healthcare. What has stood out to you as you've been reporting on this?
Well, I think the overall message that I'm hearing from a lot of the CEOs that run these small facilities is that things really began to take a turn for the worse when the Affordable Care Act went into effect. They say that it kind of focuses more on the urban areas, and that rural health kind of got stood outside, and a lot of these regulations have caused them to have cost increases, and so that has obviously affected their staff numbers. So it's kind of gone all over the place, but that's one of the main things that they say is the issue.
Yeah, you were talking about recruiting. They were talking about recruiting there. What more are they doing in that area?
Well, that's what's kind of interesting. They've always come up with all these incredible ideas to try to bring some of these people, because, a small community is not for everyone.
Right.
It really isn't.
No.
I mean, if you just, if you like that hometown feel where you know everybody.
Sure, some people might love it.
That's fantastic. But one of the ideas that they're working on kind of across the country is they're trying to bring in some foreign doctors. And so when they do that, they're kind of offering them kind of a expedited green card. So that's actually kind of interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, they'll try to entice you to come to these rural communities, be like, hey, we might get you through the immigration process quicker if you move here.
Yeah, hadn't heard about that. So from what you've learned, what you've been looking at, where do you think rural healthcare stands now? Is it in a good position for the future?
I mean, it's such a complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone through 4 or 5 stories talking about the number of issues here. It's not as easy as people think, but I think it has to evolve. And the problem is that a lot of these communities are getting older. They're not getting younger. A lot of the younger kids are going to the bigger cities, like coming to Omaha or going to Denver or whatever. But they're coming up with different ways. They've got the telehealth, things like that, but it's so complicated that I can't give a clear answer on that one.
Sure, no one really has that answer.
No,
and
I mean,
so
they're testing everything they possibly can, and some things stick and some things don't.
All right, and I'm sure it's something you'll continue to cover, especially if they come up with different ways to try to recruit or deal with this issue.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thanks so much, Jeff. And to see all of the stories in the investigative team's rural healthcare series, visit our website, that's 3newsnow.com, and click on investigative. And if you have a story that you want our team to look into, email us at investigative@3newsnow.com.
Hopefully you'll never have to use what's inside this bag.
A person can bleed to death in as little as a couple minutes.
But in today's society, being prepared for the worst is the best thing to do.
So we needed to figure out a way to bridge that gap between time of injury and the time the paramedics can enter.
That bridge came in the form of these bleeding control kits, helped put together by local firefighter Dustin Tlaco.
Previous to Sandy Hook, this was really not existent.
After that mass shooting, which took more than 20 lives, the idea for Stop the Bleed was born.
have tourniquets, pressure bandages, occlusive dressings, and we have gauze.
And now you may start to see more and more of these kits around Omaha, including at several local schools.
The reality is it's time for us to be prepared for those type of things, and we are dealing with them whether we want to or not.
Jay Elliott, assistant principal at Westgate Elementary, says the staff is now prepared in case anything were to happen.
We have some trained staff that would be able to, address some of those emergency scenarios when it comes to medical.
Tlaco didn't stop there, however. He's now rolling out life safety stations.
It houses Narcan, it houses an EpiPen, an AED, and bleeding control all in one enclosure.
But it's not just at schools where you will find these kits. They're also at churches, businesses, and festivals.
If you look at situations like the Las Vegas shooting or any of these mass casualty events, the ability to stop major bleeds is saving lives every day.
In Omaha, John Madden, 3 News Now.
Darren Engelman might be at work, but he's never more than a tap away from his home.
I can grab my phone, pull it up, and 3 seconds later I can see 8 different views of what's going on in my house.
Even those pesky news reporters filming video for a story.
So what are you seeing right now? I'm seeing some guy I don't know in my driveway.
Engelman is one of the first people to be sharing video with the La Vista Police Department as part of its Scram video surveillance registration system.
So when we have an incident in the neighborhood, we know there's a potential for video evidence.
Big Brother might be watching, but this is purely voluntary.
We will not have access to anybody's camera system. If they have footage, we'd ask them to make a copy for us.
There's no cost to me to share that information with the police department. I have the information, why wouldn't I share it?
Think of this as the modern-day neighborhood watch. But instead of patrolling the streets, you're now sending the police video you got from your doorbell.
The camera systems are the eyes and ears of their neighborhood.
You have video footage that shows what's going on.
The goal of the program is to be a good neighbor and to ease the police's job along the way.
They're neighbors. If you want them to look out for you, you got to return the favor to them also.
Reporting in La Vista, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now.
In this class, it doesn't matter your age, the number of exercises you can do, or how far along your disease is.
There is life after Parkinson's. It's just a little different from what you anticipated.
Bert Sampson has been taking classes for 4 years.
I think it helps by increasing your confidence that you know you're never going to get rid of it, but you can learn to deal with it.
We have a couple areas of focus: posture, balance, controlling gait, but also flexibility. But we also do some pretty heavy cardiovascular movement and strength training.
Instructor Emmy Smith is specially trained for Delay the Disease. She traveled to Ohio to learn the program. They do exercise circuits, but also practice motor skills through writing, tools for day-to-day life.
They're movements, your functional training movements, things that we don't maybe realize every day: getting out of a chair, making a big first step, reaching for something on the floor.
There are Delay the Disease classes in states all over the U.S., including ones at 4 YMCA locations in the Omaha area. Various studies show exercise may slow the progression of Parkinson's and help people manage symptoms. And they gain something else here.
People, the camaraderie, and the staff and the volunteers here are great. They're angels.
George Moon's wife comes along to the classes. She sees the connection he has made.
It's the group of guys. They've got their little bond going.
A disease that tries to knock them down may be the reason they come here. But what brings them together is much more powerful than Parkinson's. Unwavering support that holds strong and keeps them moving forward.
Can't stand up straight, but I keep going.
If you'd like to learn more about the program, including if it's right for you and when and where the classes are, we have all of that information linked to this story on our website, 3newsnow.com.
Welcome back. If you love birds, here's a good chance for you to surround yourself with them. The Greater Omaha Cage Bird Society is hosting its fall bird fair this month. And with me today is Michelle and Russ with the organization to discuss this fair. And they also brought some friends with them, some very bright colored friends. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell me a little bit about the organization first off.
Well, so the organization formed in about 1985.
We've been around for a long, long time, and not many people know about us. So we are essentially the place to take birds. If someone's relative passed away and they've had a bird in their home for about 40 years, where do you take it? Well, they come to the Greater Omaha Cage Bird Society usually. And so most of the birds here are former adoption birds, and they get adopted out through our adoption program. One of our greatest needs is to have a building to be able to house these adoption birds in. We get in sometimes 25 at a time, so we really need to have a place to house them. And anyway,
where are they at now?
Well, right now they're at Michelle Hoffman's.
Oh, they're at their house.
Not all of them. Our club members, they all join in. We have a fostering program as well.
Okay.
A very active foster adoption program.
Very nice. And so the fair is intended, what's the reasoning behind the fair?
That's our major fundraiser of the year. So we have them twice a year in April and in September. And we set up birds vendors, food vendors, cage vendors from all over the Midwest and beyond. We bring them in for a one-day sale, so to speak, kind of like the Furniture Mart for birds, if you will.
Okay. And so what can people expect at the fair? I know you guys brought some goodies that they'll be at the fair, which definitely caught my eye.
Treat vendor this year, but there's like she was saying, we have vendors that have everything to do with birds, toys, feeds, birds themselves. There's a nice raffle table. There's food to munch on. It's a good experience for all. So.
Awesome. And Maya will be there. This is Maya, right?
This is Maya.
That's Maya. All right. Well, she will be there. All right. Well, we'll have more information on our webpage. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's the middle of September, but for those wanting to get that last taste of summer, here at Dairy Chef in Elkhorn, they have unique burgers and ice cream as tall as your head. What started off as Dairy Sweet back in 1969 is now known as Dairy Chef, a place for ice cream lovers.
And the best ice cream in all of Omaha is in Elkhorn.
During the busy season, we go through about 500 gallons of ice cream a week.
500 gallons a week?
Yep. So it's a lot to put out of these machines, and we'll have, seven or eight kids and, employees, all of us working in this small little space here. So we're definitely running into each other
a lot. Of like spinning and cones.
There's a lot of spinning, stopping quick, a lot of movement.
It's now owned by Michael Osman and his family. The building has changed since it opened.
The original building was from this wall here to that wall.
But the heart and soul of this Elkhorn staple has remained the same.
Oh, we like the hometown atmosphere, but the food is really good.
Their yummy ice cream makes it a must-stop summer hot spot for teens and families.
There are times that there's so many cars that it's hard to find a place to park. So obviously people are willing to wait.
They say that if the parking lot's full, it must be a good place to eat.
That's true, very much.
And a rewarding treat for others.
We went to Weight Watchers.
And because we had a successful week, we decided to try out the new ice cream place.
What better way to celebrate?
So now we have to go to the gym.
Yeah. Beyond their ice cream menu, which consists of a variety of shakes and cones as big as they come, they have hamburgers, sandwiches, hot dogs, anything you could basically find at your local neighborhood American eatery, including a burger topped with their favorite bacon and a runny egg. Their meat is also local and fresh.
Never frozen or anything. We patty it every day, and so it's always coming out fresh.
As well as their fries. Fries I, of course, had to try during my favorite part of the day, the tasting portion. Ooh, yes.
All right. Well, we can go outside?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Good day for that. So the Big Mike is a bacon cheeseburger with our shaved roast beef and then a soft cheddar cheese on top of it.
Oh. But this is a great combo. The bacon's so crunchy.
Yeah.
And then the roast beef is kind of soft, and then you got your patty in there, your cheese. That sauce is really good.
Yeah.
Do I have everything off my face now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. How proud are you of Dairy Chef? I mean, it's part of Elkhorn.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's historical. It's something that we just loved Dairy Chef for a long time. We've been coming here for 30 years. We didn't try and change everything about the Dairy Chef. There's still a lot of things that are still here that have been part of the Dairy Chef for 50 years.
Their two most popular plates are reasonably priced, with their Big Mike costing you $6.09 and their garbage burger at $5.99. So you know what would make this day even better?
What's that?
Probably some ice cream.
Yeah, I believe it.
Should we try it? Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to the ice cream, forget about your standard vanilla cone. Here you can get any cone dipped in flavors like chocolate, butterscotch, cherry, or birthday cake. Or you could always go for their ice cream sandwiches, their shakes, or any of their specialty sweets.
Chocolate ice cream, cold fudge, brownies, and Oreo.
This is called the breakup.
It's called the breakup, yep.
Do you have a lot of people who come in here and are like, I need it?
Nah, you wouldn't think so. Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I do.
That breakup will cost you a broken heart and $5.79.
Someone's willing to break my heart. This is worth it.
They better buy you a breakup.
They better break my heart and buy me the breakup.
There you go.
Can you get a couple more napkins? I have napkins all over. Well, there you have it. Fresh ice cream, burgers, and fries for less than $10. Not a bad deal, which is why that's my Cheap Eats tip of the week. Now, for those of you wanting to check out Dairy Chef, or if you're trying to get over a breakup, the hours and locations are on your screen.
Stay connected at 3newsnow.com.